And happy 420, guys. Welcome to 420 News with your host, Martin Condon. Guys, welcome along to another edition of 420 News, brought to you by Martin's World. Guys, we have an interesting one for you today on the show. We're going to talk a bit about some of the drug feud that's been going on up in Drogheda. We're also going to talk about the kind of attempted murders there, the hits put out by on members of the Kinahan Cartel. And also recently up there in Drogheda, apparently a hit being put out on a Gardai. And then we're going to finish off talking a little bit about the Cork Joint Policing Committee. They had a meeting there today above in, I don't know actually where they had a meeting today because I couldn't find out. I was trying to find out so I could actually go and attend and possibly stream the 420 news from there today because they're bringing up the topic of edibles, but we'll deal with that there in a little while. But look, I wasn't able to find it, and I'm sure the meeting wasn't going to be open to the public either anyway, but I was hoping to stand outside of there and maybe catch some of these guys as they left. But, no harm anyway. Hopefully I'll have some information there to deliver to yourselves off the back of that meeting later today. But until then, bear with me. So guys, to jump on to the first piece on the agenda today, we're going to go to Drogheda, where this fine piece of art was put up on the wall by a local graffiti artist. What's blocked out above it is the name of a local guard, and underneath it you can say 20k on your head. So what's supposedly happening here is on last Friday's edition of 420 News, I reported that there was a raid carried out above in Drogheda on two houses, and in one of the houses there was about 74 cannabis plants found, €61,000 worth, they said. So supposedly this piece of artwork was inspired by that bit of work by our Gardai, you know. So this artist, I don't know, was he connected to the Grow or is he just connected to the gang? Maybe, I don't know what the story is there, or whether there actually is 20k on the head of a guard. But let's just imagine you're that guard for a second, you know. You got up that morning, you put on your uniform, and you go off out to work. You think you're doing good for the community, and you're just doing your job, following the orders that you're given. And then at the end of the day, as a result of your work, your name is now sprayed on a wall with a threat on your life. Essentially, what this is a threat on this person's life, this Gardaí's life. This guard could have a wife, could have children. He has a mother, he has a father. Possibly brothers, sisters. There's other people there to this guard who are going to be, rather upset because of this threat on their life, and possibly they could too also feel at risk, essentially, of being victimized. Just by being associated with this guard. Because let's say his wife. Maybe if he has a wife or she has a husband, whoever that guard is, maybe they're not worried. Maybe they're worried about their kids now. And what is that guard actually getting paid, I wonder? What's the average wage of a guard, a drug detective? Maybe between 40 and 60,000, let's say. And these drug gangs can afford to put a 20k hit in your head, on your life, threaten the safety of your family, all just so you can follow orders and just do your job. Wouldn't it be better if we could just legalize and regulate these drugs and end this stupid drug war that puts our Gardaí in at this kind of risk? It's just madness. Drogheda, it's got really out of hand. But this isn't an isolated incident. This is going on for quite a long time. The Kinahans and the Hutches, who I talk about and who I'll be talking about in a little bit, like they're around for a long time. We know these drug gangs go around the place and they perpetuate their violence on our street as long as these silly policies remain in place. And our Gardaí, they're at risk now. I don't want nobody getting hurt. Like, there's no need for this kind of stuff. It's silly. It really is silly. I don't know if people have actually watched Inside the Decay. But if you haven't watched it, check it out. It's actually it's an okay show from to come from RT. But it was good. It was good insight into the life and the work of our Gardaí and what they do. But what was interesting is to see how the Gardaí viewed these people, that were operating for these drug gangs. There was one house in particular where there was a pile of young people and adults and stuff in the garden, and they were all just standing there while the Gardaí were viewing and watching them. They're all known to the Gardaí and all of that. But the Gardaí were on about then, like a lot of the people in the garden were young kids, and they talked about how like these gangs lure these kids in through brandishing all of this luxury items. I can't remember what it was. The goose or French goose or Canadian goose jackets or something were one item on the show. And to be honest, like when the Gardaí were going through the evidence after they carried out a raid on one of these young drug dealers' houses, they were going through the evidence afterwards. They seized all this young man's clothes and all his watches and stuff. Now, in fairness, like they were definitely bought with drug dealing money, because the young fella, I think he was about 17 or something. He didn't really work. So, how else does he get it? Fair enough, they have the point taken. But the guards were going through it afterwards, and they were rather jealous. I think the guard turned around and actually said at one stage, like, I could never afford to buy this on my wage. Like, see how at risk these Gardaí are. They're going to have to risking their lives every day, but no, they're not even able to afford a jacket that the drug dealers can buy easily. Like, not only drug dealers, but very young drug dealers too. It's crazy. Like, maybe one of these guards just gives in one day and he's like, you know what, I had it. I'm sick of this. I don't want 20k in my head. I'm going to actually join allegiances with these drug gangs, and I'm going to help them do their work so I don't actually get targeted in this. I want some of that money, because they're sick of putting it all into evidence. Maybe they actually want to put some into their own pocket, like, and maybe they actually get into bed with some of these criminals and help them. People might think I'm a bit crazy, but this has happened. It has happened. There's a number of cases where Gardaí have been they're being implicated in working alongside or with, giving information to, helping to get the criminals evade checkpoints, be prepared for raids. So it's very worthwhile for these gangs to have a member of their Gardaí on force and support of them. So if our guards aren't getting paid enough and these drug gangs are making all of this money, it's just crazy that this is still going on. And then above in Drogheda, then going back in June, I think this was, it's pictured, stamped up there on the top of it, but this is a fire in the garden of none other than a member of our Gardaí's house. So these criminals found out where this guard lived, and they went and they threw, well, they didn't actually throw a petrol bomb. I don't think there was any evidence of a petrol bomb being found or any sort of explosive device. So they went and set a massive fire anyway in this guy's garden. And it was essentially a threat and intimidation, like, hey, we know where you live. Maybe next time this will be our house. I think this guard actually had to move from the house to another probably undisclosed new location, and is probably living in fear now every night that, maybe tonight might be the last night he gets to go to bed and go to sleep with his family in the house, because they might not wake up in the morning because of the work he has done, targeting these criminals. That's scary to think, that's a garden of a member of our Gardaí, and that's the Gardaí can't protect themselves. That's kind of what it says here to me. And anytime I've been stopped by the Gardaí before, and I've said this numerous times, they put me at risk. They wanted me to tell them where I got my drugs, my hash, my weed. They wanted me to tell them where I got this from. So for what? So that I can have this done to my garden? Is it? You for real? Seriously? I'd rather take my chances with the judge. You sausages, like, I'm not going to rat on a drug dealer, like, when this is what they do. Come off the stage, like, who are you fooling, like? Because the only people who actually go and ratting people are people who are, like, maybe college students. A cop catches a guy up on College Road. He knows there's a good chance this young fella has probably not been in trouble with the cops before. He's going to be easy to intimidate. And, if they catch him with a little bit of weed on him, tell us where you got it, and you don't have to go to court. You're studying to be a doctor, you'll never be a doctor if you have a criminal record. Just tell us where you got it, and this will all go away. Meanwhile, you tell him where you got it, and somebody has walked past, he's seen you interacting with the guards, he's seen the guard taking stuff off you, and you don't go to court, and later on that day, maybe that drug dealer's house gets raided. It's just a potential scenario you could find yourself in as a vulnerable person being dealt with at a Gardaí, where you'd rather just take the chances with the Gardaí than actually these criminals out there. I was talking earlier to another journalist, and I was telling her of a story where I got contacted by people who went out to Passage West to get some cannabis. They were waiting out in Passage West for the dealer to show up, and who showed up then was actually a proper scumbag. Four people in a car pulled up. One person got out, presented with a knife, and told the person to give him the €100 that they had there for him to buy the bit of cannabis they were going to buy that day. And they also took their phones off him too, so that they couldn't take pictures of him and couldn't contact the guards. Luckily, they weren't actually even touched. They weren't assaulted or hit or anything on that encounter. But they couldn't go to the guards or anything afterwards. Like what are the guards going to do? Like, if anything, the guards probably just going to target them, like make them a victim of their own crime. Like, essentially, like they were trying to buy cannabis. Like, now that the guards going to see them as a drug user, and is not really going to want to help him. Like, what's he going to do? Like, oh, I'm going to get your money back. Like, yeah, fair enough. Like, but anyway, these people didn't even report their crime to the guards. They put it up there. I think it was on Instagram. I came across it and had a little chat with them there, and they were quite distraught about it. And they're just going to wait now until their regular supplier gets back up and running, because basically their supply had dried out because of the whole coronavirus. They were a bit desperate, took a chance, got in a bus to the passage, and got robbed at knife point, and couldn't report it into the guards because, look here, the guards can't even protect themselves from the drug dealers. It's madness that they think that this stuff is going on. But like, we go back just a little bit further, okay? Just let's go back to that time before the pandemic. Oh, what a glorious time that was, when there was no lockdowns, no nothing, like, but there was still these criminal bloody scumbags out there. But this guy here pictured is if you don't know, it's Kane Mulready Woods, and that was quite a scary story that happened at that time. He was found dismembered. He was chopped up by drug gangs above in Drogheda, caught up in a feud apparently. And yeah, these guys just took it upon themselves to make a name for themselves. Maybe they watched a few too many Scarface movies. I don't know. Maybe they're watching what the Mexican drug cartels are doing down their way. I just don't know what's going through these people's heads who go do this stuff to people. But like, Kane Mulready Woods, he was out there working for some of these drug gangs above in Drogheda. Whatever's going on up in Drogheda, I don't know what the story is up there, but crazy. Like, they went and chopped him up. Like, I don't know, did they chop off his head or chopped off his arms, or scary stuff. Like, but the young fella was only 17. Like, 17. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, seriously, let's go back to 2003 when Luke Ming Flanagan put his bill forward to legalise and regulate cannabis. Like, if we'd done that back then, like, we could have done an awful lot to disempower some of these massive drug gangs coming up. Like, back in 2003, I don't think there was as big a drug problem in Drogheda as there is today. We might have never actually reached that state had we maybe dealt with Ming back then and made proper changes to his bill to make it more suitable. But rather than shoot it down and continue with the prohibition that saw the rise of this kind of violence up there in our country, where young fellas as young as 17 are getting dismembered. Like, this is crazy where we're after going. Like, and it's crazy to think of how worse it's going to get the longer we allow these policies to remain in place that these drug gangs pop up with. Like, to be honest, like, right now, I've had a couple of people who say to me, oh, fair play for what you're doing. You're very brave putting yourself out there. The guards will be looking at you. They're going to be watching what you're doing and everything. And to them, I say, like, I'm actually not even afraid of the guards. Like, the guys who I'm afraid of are the guys who do things like this. Chop this guy up, like, because essentially what I am doing here and what I want to do and what I want to achieve through doing this is I want to see cannabis legalized and regulated, and other drugs, like, controlled and regulated in an appropriate manner to those respective drugs. But for cannabis, like, I'm happy to sit down and converse around how we should regulate that. The other drugs, I'm not an expert in those ones. I don't really want to talk about them too much, but I definitely want to say they too need to be controlled and regulated, because this sort of violence that happens in our country, it's the longer these policies stay in place that keeps these drugs legal, the longer these gangs are going to go to all sorts of lengths to secure their trade, which includes chopping up 17-year-old boys. Like, Jesus, like, guys, that's scary to think. Like, so anybody who supports prohibition, just really have a think about what you're actually supporting. Is this really what you want to support? Policies that see the rise of criminal gangs, that put hits on members of our Gardaí, that petrol bomb or light on fire gardens of members of our Gardaí, or chop up young fellas like Kane Mulready Woods. Seriously, this is just crazy. And then to just jump on into the next item is the hits put out on this guy here, which is James Gately, Maga or Mogo or something like that was his nickname. I don't know what his nickname is. It doesn't matter anyway. But this guy got shot there 2017, I think it was, and today up in court, 4 people were up charged with the attempted murder of this guy. But the only reason I want to share this story is just because, like, we want to just draw attention is the Drogheda situation. Like, these guys, at least they went around and they didn't chop each other up in the same manner as what's going on back then. Like, these guys, they're around a long time. They're a bit older, they're a bit more mature, the Kinahans and the Hutches. Like, they operated in a different manner to the more extreme fucking people coming up now today. Like what we're seeing in Drogheda, where your man Cian Mulready Woods gets chopped up and found in a suitcase. Like, it's crazy. Not to say that the Kinahans and stuff are any better, like, but like they're around for 20 so years, the Kinahans, and our Gardai have done what, really? The only thing that they've really done is just accumulate a major increase in overtime in order to target these guys. But these guys are still at large. Seriously, your man Daniel Kinahan, I think it was, he was only up there not too long ago. Like, he's he's promoting boxing now. He's legitimizing himself in different ways, using money that he got basically through his crime world, like, his crime family. It's mad to think that these guys are Gardaí weren't able to stop any of this stuff, and they're happy to continue not being able to stop all of this stuff, and to see the rise now of even more extreme drug gangs who are going to go at the even more extreme lengths to secure their territory, just to make a name for themselves. Just even the ever more diversifying Ireland. We've people the direct provision centres now, and we've an ever increasing amount of refugees and things coming over, and they're at major risk of being recruited into these trades, because a lot of them can't even work legitimately in this country until they get their status approved and all of this crack. So, like, who better to target than these desperate guys in direct provision to push and peddle your drugs for you, and to just carry out your trade. It's not more different than the young fellas inside into some of these deprived neighbourhoods, the Ballymuns, the Knocknaheenies. No offence to anybody living in these areas, like, but you know what I mean. Like, the people inside of there, they just get targeted, whereas if you're from one of these D4 areas, or from the Montanaris, or the, I don't know, the Donnybrooks. Yeah, the more finer places in our locales, where the average income in the house is a bit more, and the number of houses in the area that require social assistance income is less. It's mad to think that this is still just going to be going on. Like, and we just jump on to the final thing, is the Cork Joint Policing Committee. So, like, these guys are meeting today to have a discussion about drugs in the county of Cork, about the prominence of them. Like, seriously, guys, how long have you been talking about this stuff? Like, well, what are you actually going to talk about of there? Seriously, I would love to get in the door of it. I attended one of their meetings there. They had a conference back in 2017, I think it was, above in the Charleville Park Hotel. It was a very nice setup on the day. And I got to meet some really nice, interesting people there, but I also got to meet some arrogant assholes too, like, who were staunch prohibitionists. They were not willing to entertain any ideas around the thoughts of regulation and decriminalisation at all. Like, they were very much in favour of continuing prohibition and this kind of being tougher on crime. One person up there actually kind of talked about how this was a form of help for some of these people, that by being criminalised, that they were going to receive help inside in the prison from the prison services, and this was in terms of drug users. So rather than help a person with a health issue through the health model, under the health model, we're taking a person who has a health issue, we're now criminalising them, and then treating them as on treating them health-wise under the criminal justice thing. You know, why are we putting this undue pressure there on them? You know, why are we making our Gardaí at risk? You know, why are we targeting drug dealers all the time rather than going out after the pedophiles, the murderers, the real criminals who are doing real damage to our society? You know, who are doing real damage to people around us. You know, it's mad to think the scumbags in the banks as well, like they all got off lightly, and the untold damage they did, like the number of lives lost, lives taken because of the financial hardship people found themselves in, and some of these bankers are still walking free today, like, and they're bigger criminals than any fucking drug dealer, to be fair. But again, that's going a bit off topic, I suppose. But the Cork Joint Policing Committee, they had their own meeting today, and they talked about something that I've been talking about there lately. And this is an old clip there from that article, and it says, last month cannabis jellies were also seized. Such jellies are becoming more available in Ireland in recent months and are packaged similar to sweets. The jellies are infused with tetrahydrocannabinol, THC, the primary psychoactive component of marijuana. So here we have it again. Look, another one of these fear-mongering things, but another like propping up of the jellies and the infused cannabis. Like there's more fear-mongering going on out there now, that this is some sort of a new evil thing. And it really pisses me off to see the primary psychoactive component of marijuana written there. Like it's cannabis, guys. The plant is called cannabis, okay? Marijuana is it's nothing. That's a slang term, like, you know. It's like calling it weed. It's not weed either. Like a weed technically is an unwanted plant growing in your garden. You know, a dandelion is not a weed unless it's not wanted in your garden. Just think about it that way. That's what a weed is. What marijuana is a slang term that essentially it came from, like, apparently Mexican soldiers who used to use the term Mary and Jane for brothels. You know. Maria Joanna. Apparently, that's one myth as to the origin of that. And another one is what was the other one? Jeez, I can't remember. Oh, it was some Mayan connection there, some ancient Aztec Mayan connection there with the words. But again, like, it's just theorized, no real evidence there whether it is. But again, it's the only reason marijuana is used for cannabis is because the prohibitionists back in the 1930s wanted to pull the blindfolds, put people in the shadows, you know, smoke and mirrors effect, basically, to tell you that there's this evil drug around called marijuana, and these foreign guys are using it. You know, the blackies smoke it, and it makes them think they're better than whiteys, you know. And the white women smoke it, and they want to have unprotected sex with the Negroes, you know. This was some of the propaganda that was put out in the 1930s about marijuana. But essentially, if they said that it was cannabis, a lot of people would have been able to kind of say, but the cannabis, I'm getting that off my doctor for my menopause, for my arthritis, for my glaucoma, for the multiple issues that cannabis was used back then for. But no, they used the term marijuana, and they were able to just basically manipulate people into thinking that there was this new drug coming around. And people were incredibly racist back then, so they were more than happy to get on board any kind of trend that was there to stigmatize people racially. So that's where the term marijuana came from, and it's very annoying when I see it there. Like, but our Cork Joint Policing Committee are going to have a meeting up there now and talk about these jellies and stuff. Like, but I can only imagine what they're actually talking about. Like, these guys, you know, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Like, and sorry for using language, I hate using language in this, but like, I get really annoyed with these guys. Like, where's the inclusion of the consumers? Seriously, like, I know what we're doing is illegal and they see us as criminals, but does our opinion not count on this? Like, can we not have a bit of input on these things when they're so relevant to us? I, as a cannabis consumer, have a lot of very useful and valuable information that I'm happy to provide to these committees, and I'm happy to engage with them in any way I can to get them go in the right direction in order to do the job what they're trying to do, which is to help people and to make the streets safer. You know, I wish they would engage with people like myself, but no, I would get locked out of these things. I wouldn't really be allowed engage with them. I'm going to definitely try. I'm not going to stop it, like, but I didn't get an invite up there today. More of the other people out there in the harm reduction space, none of them have gotten invites up there today. So I don't know, it's just another talking shop for the boys, the prohibitionists, to go up there and to continue spouting their nonsense about prohibition. Like, what are they going to do now? They're just going to, like, jellies, THC jellies. How are they even going to police this? I'm going down the road and I have a bag of jellies in my car. How do you police that? Like, you're going to seize my jellies. Oh, there's an idea for a protest, lads. We go into the guard station with a bag of jellies and tell them one of the jellies and there has a bit of cannabis in it, and it's up to them to find out which one. Oh, Jesus, sorry for laughing at my own jokes. Like, I'm a langer. But seriously, like, what are they going to do? How are they going to police this? Like, jellies. Just have a big box of jellies in your car from now on and just look at the cop with a big smile. Oh, good Lord. Like, where are they going with this? When's this going to end? I hope we see legalization in this country soon. Like, but I would love to be a fly in that wall, up in that room, to just listen to some of the nonsense today that's going to be spouted, because undoubtedly it's probably comedy gold. Probably is, and these guys don't realize that they're comical geniuses with their fucking prohibition nonsense. To just jump on to another thing they're going to be covering there in the Cork Joint Policing Committee, and it's going to be about heroin needles. So above in Knocknaheeny there, so earlier this year, a 9-year-old boy found heroin needles and other drug-taking paraphernalia when he went to retrieve his football in Dunmore Gardens in Knocknaheeny. He found 3 needles, spoons, blood-stained tissues, condoms, and packets belonging to alcohol wipes. So there you go, guys. Like, this is prohibition in action, basically. We've got young kids finding needles disposed above in neighborhoods and fields where young people play. Not long before this too, on Sundays well, there was needles found across the road from a girls' school. More needles not too far from this area too, only just down the road. Something needs to be done. This isn't just a problem that's propped up just yesterday. This has been going on for a long time now. Like, seriously, what is going on out there? We are not going to achieve anything with our prohibition approach. This thing, it's just not going to work. Let's look at somewhere like I think it's Switzerland, and you can Google this. Google Switzerland Needle Park and look at what they done there. It was back in the 1970s, I think that was. They had a major issue there with heroin use and injection. So what they done is they cordoned an area and they put it where, look, if you're in this area and you're shooting up, we're not going to criminalize you for doing it in this area. So that was kind of good. It took the problem from other areas and it centralized it in one area in a certain respect. But what happened then is there was a lot of problems kind of coming from that one area then, because everyone was there. So they went a step further afterwards and they actually just set up a facility within that area. And I think they set it up in other areas too. But basically, the people who were users of heroin who injected, they were able to register with the service. They were able to come in the morning. The Swiss, they're very efficient people, come in. I think it was 7 a.m., doors open, in they go. They get their treatment because it's a heroin-assisted treatment, a heroin-assisted therapy that they're receiving because they're sick. They're addicted to heroin, but they're also people who are sick. Either mentally, there's trauma and all of that stuff there, and it's not to stigmatize them either, it's just the reality of their situation. And they basically were provided heroin and other kind of therapies and assistances, and they haven't seen an overdose there in God only knows how long. Since the service was introduced, they haven't seen any overdoses there, and they've also seen a major reduction in this sort of stuff. Or needles aren't being disposed anymore because why? Because the people are injecting inside in the facilities. The users are known. The people are registered, and a lot of them actually will come in the morning. They'll receive their therapy and they'll go away off to work for the day, and they're fine. They're pretty functioning, and they're not out there robbing people or anything like that, as we have here currently under the model of prohibition. So by supporting prohibition, you also support this crap where people are leaving their needles outside. And then there's a lot of people out there who'll stigmatize injecting drug users because of this sort of behavior. And what I say to them then is this: think of it this way, okay? I was in my car the other day in traffic and I seen this scumbag smoking a fag and he threw it out the window, just threw the fag butt out onto the floor. Like, I think that's scummy in my eyes, like. But imagine if I went around and thinking that every cigarette smoker was as scummy as that guy who had no consideration for the planet and the other people who have to live here on it with him, and they all just if I thought they all just threw their cigarette butts on the floor. Imagine if I thought that about every cigarette user. Well, if you do that to heroin or injecting drug users, and injecting a heroin user, you're just doing that same thing. Just because one person does it doesn't mean they all do it. There's many people out there who inject heroin who are very responsible and would never ever leave a needle lying around a place like this. But at the same time, this person who's done that, like maybe this person is unable to care for themselves. So how in the name of God's, like, how do you expect them to care for others if they can't even care for themselves? Really just think about it. And the longer we continue with this prohibition of injecting drug users, these people are sick. They need to be helped. Again, I'm just, I know this 420 news, it should be cannabis and stuff but this stuff is very much related. My journey in activism started with cannabis, but I soon found out the harms there right across the community of drug users, of illegal drug users, and people who use heroin are by far the worst affected, to be fair, by the policy of prohibition. A lot of them can't even speak up for themselves. I'm here today. I'm able to do this show. I'm able to do all of this stuff. I smoked some cannabis earlier. I'm able to do all of this stuff here present, But a lot of people out there addicted to heroin. It's a very sad life that they're living. They feel worthless. They feel their opinion isn't valued, and all of that. I think the sooner we change that, the sooner we can get. Jeez, I'm getting all emotional there and everything about just thinking of that now. But it is horrible. How many people out there, they just feel worthless. They're at the end of the barrel as it is already. And they get caught by the cops. They're being brought before the judge. They take their own lives. They're just it's a sad situation, and we punish them then because they're a drug user. It's sad. It really is sad. Jeez, that I didn't even expect to get that emotional about that one. Fact. Just to finish up, guys. Look, I'm going to shoot back over there, see how everybody's doing out there, see what kind of comments we got up there today on the show. All right, Connor Kemp, going out a thing, or going out at that. It's Keith Barry, the magician you want. I've an AK hit on his kneecap. What? I don't know what that's about at all. Fair enough. Snitches get stitches there from Ken and Adrian, Democracy. Lads, nice one for the comments there. Connor, I don't know what you're on about there. What's the story of Keith Barry? Why do you want to kneecap that guy? But guys, seriously, thanks very much for tuning in today, and thanks for listening to me ramble on here again. But hopefully someday I'll be coming to you with positive news that our government have taken some positive steps in the right direction and started decriminalising drug users in this country, and start legalising and regulating the sale and supply of cannabis, and let our people grow, So guys, and also guys, just to finish off, one last call to action, okay? A lot of the stuff I touched off at the start of this was about these scumbags and these criminal gangs out there, okay, that are doing all this violence and stuff. Take it from me, if you want to do your part for this, just know your source, okay? Know where you're buying your cannabis from, even if your cocaine, know where you're getting it from, because you don't want to be supporting these scumbags, these criminals, to be honest. You don't want your money being used to perpetuate this kind of violence. So if you're a cannabis consumer, guys, grow your own, or try to source from somebody who's growing their own. Just be very careful where you're getting it from. There's some absolute scumbags out there making an absolute fortune off the sale and supply of cannabis. I think cannabis is the backbone to the illicit drug market, and if we were to regulate the sale and supply of cannabis, we'd be doing a tremendous effort to be taking apart these criminal enterprises. So guys, that's it for me. A little call to action. Grow your own, know your source. Peace and love, guys. Keep it real. Martin's World. Signing off. Peace.